Good evening, friends. Welcome to the Leader's Edge, Episode 1, Season.
Everyone, and welcome to our weekly webcast called The Leader's Edge. We are here tonight.
Welcome to episode number 7, Season
Leader's Edge. And in our show today, which is Season 6,
Leader's Edge, Season 3, Episode 10. And
I'm Nelson T. Welcome to this super special episode of The Leader's Edge.
And this is episode 8 of season 6.
Hey guys, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
We are now on our season 6, episode 2. And tonight, we have an amazing and a wonderful
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Leader's Edge. And today, it's Season 7, Episode 4. And we're going to talk about transformation through a growth mindset. And man, do we need it. Because, these are trying, challenging times. And unless you are able to adopt a positive and persevering mindset, you're not going to make it. Because times are really difficult. And so we have a special guest today who will be able to talk to us about it and how he got really inspired by the work of Dr. Carol Dweck. And his outline will cover many things like what is a growth mindset, what is a mindset, what is a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, what is a growth mindset, why is it crucial in transformation, how we view challenges in times of difficulty, and how we view ourselves and our potentials, applying growth mindset transformations, and all those other important things. Like, for example, if you're an athlete, a professional, or a student, a parent, a coach, a teacher, a supervisor, how do you apply all of those things? So, but enough about what our topic is for today. I'd like you to meet our special guest. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us all give a warm welcome to Eric Riego de Dios. Eric?
Thank you so much, Dino. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be part of this platform. I have seen in many occasions the different videos, and I'm really privileged to be a part of the many guests and rosters that you have, very illustrious names, and some of them are dear and close friends of mine in the industry, and I guess yours as well. And I'm very happy that you have given us the purpose to also amplify our voice to the HR community and beyond, because I believe the topics that we're covering here are actually applicable in many industries, in many professions, and also, aligned with the science of the time. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and indeed, it's a great pleasure and a privilege, Dino.
Same here. I know that this has been really very difficult for you, and on behalf of our viewers, I'd like to thank you for really making the extra effort to be with us today.
Dino, the pleasure is all mine. I know that during these times, many of us are actually affected by the pandemic and its varying forms, shapes, and sizes. And sometimes you just don't know when you need to rest and when you need some time to recollect, reassess. And, it's also particularly aligned with the growth mindset, because in the growth mindset, it's also being able to know when you need to take a break, reassess, be mindful of the things, and then get back on track. So I think that's also part and parcel of our growth mindset, if we put that kind of mindset or framework at work. So all of us, as we transform and as we grow, I think we need to know when to go and when to go slow. So very aligned, Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Would you like to share with our audience a slide deck, or is there something that you would like to?
Oh yes, if ever I would like to, just to give us some framework in terms of our conversation, Dino, and hopefully we'll be engaged in this conversation. I would rather that this be a conversation, Dino, and not a lecture or presentation from Eric, because I think that's the least that our viewers would like to see. But nonetheless, I do have a couple of slides to guide us through this conversation of transformation through growth mindset. So, do you know if ever you are already seeing my slide appearing on your screen, just give me a thumbs up sign. There you go. Thank you so much, Dino. So, the topic is all about transformations through growth mindset. And as mentioned by Dino, right, Dino? Perhaps you and I are both inspired by the work of Carol Dweck. And Carol Dweck, as we know, is a professor at the Stanford University. And it's great because this is all about her own work. Essentially, she's known for the growth mindset, having been able to study two sets of students studying in the Stanford University, Dino. That's where it all started. And from there, she was able to see that there are a certain group of people who would be able to adapt and grow and succeed. And there's a different group of people who would probably be at the onset very strong, very successful, but somehow slows down and stagnate as they go along in the journey. So let's find out more about this, Dino, in terms of the growth mindset as studied by Carol Dweck. As mentioned, Dino, this is more of a conversation rather than Eric's presentation. So, Dino, I would like to ask you, how do these statements appeal to you? So if I would read through them one by one. Just tell me if you believe that these statements are true to you, and somehow if you are comfortable with them. From, let's say, just a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, or 10 being it's very true to you. Okay, so the first statement is, if you work really, really hard, you can actually make yourself an expert. Do you agree to this statement? And how much do you agree to this statement in a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I love this because it's very interactive. I would say I agree. I agree with the statement. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I go with 10, because I am willing to put in the hard work to get to where I need to be. And, like, there are no shortcuts to excellence. So I believe that the statement's very powerful.
Wonderful. Very powerful answer as well, Dino. The second statement is, do you believe that abilities are not set and can still be developed? Is this something that you believe in, Dino?
Again, I believe in that, because when and again, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10, because I'm not a technical guy. When this pandemic hit,
we have had this conversation, Dino, before, right? So I know that.
Yeah. Oo, totoo. Kasi sanay tayo sa live training, biglang online lahat. And nobody was aware of how to use Zoom or Google Meets or
there you go.
MS Teams. So I had to teach myself first. Yeah. Yes.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, where would Dino be in this scale?
Oh, you mean the third one? Third question?
Yeah, the second one. Do you believe that abilities are not set and can still be developed? You said you totally agree. So does that mean that you are at the 10?
In this particular case, I would go with an 8, and not because I'm talking about myself, but because I realize that as I try to teach others to make the pivot from analog to digital, some of them were incredibly resistant.
Incredibly resistant.
Yung bang sasabihin sa akin, Dino, please, I cannot understand what you're saying. No, that green button at the bottom, that's the share screen. You just have to click on that.
Share screen. That's exactly what I did. I had to share your screen, right? So, but Dino, at the end of the day, my follow-up question to the second statement is, at the end of the day, though it might take them more time, and greater nudging, so to speak, at the end of the day, do you believe that they can still be developed?
Oh yes, that
okay.
Eventually they'll get there.
There you go. So with that sort of a caveat, would you be moving your 8 to a much higher number?
Yeah, I'm willing to kick it up one level.
There you go. I said this is a conversation, Dino. So there you go. So the last one, would you like to take on new assignments so you can be stretched and learn new things?
Oh yeah, the unknown has always appealed to me. One of the
There.
reasons why I got bored with fun runs because
Hmm.
it's just the starting line and then the finish line, and I fell in love with obstacle course based runs and mountain runs because you never know what you're gonna get. So I would look at that. Yes, I agree with it. And on a scale of 1 to 10, uh, I'd say a cautious 9, although that's almost up to
A
10.
cautious 9.
A cautious 9 because,
Wonderful.
like, for example, when I was picked by my swim instructor in UP to do diving, because he saw that I could do the swimming part very well. The only course I got flat 1, by the way, swimming. And so he was eyeing me to try
And by the way, Dino, so let me just share. Yeah, both of us actually did swimming in our PE 101 in
yeah.
UP. So, but unlike you, I didn't get flat 1. I got 1.5. So
He wanted me to try platform diving, and so I said, "Oh, that looks so glamorous." Until you're up there, at the 5 meter platform, and then you go, "What am I doing here?"
yeah,
That
fear
looks
kicks
like,
in, right, Dino?
yeah, fear kicks in, and so when I first tried my flip, into the water, man, that was the scariest thing ever because I didn't land the right way, and it hurt like like hell. So um, I'd put that at a cautious 9, but I was sure that if I had stayed with it, I would have gotten better at it. Um, but you see, I tried out for the Vanguard back then, and so I had to
There
drop
you
that
go. Yeah.
and went with that other unknown, which was, will I survive through 6 months of initiation? And that was tough too.
But you did try, and you did try many other things, So I think that's, although it's a cautious 9, I think you are a sort of a soft 10 already. So there.
Yeah.
So there you go. So thank you so much. So hold your thought, because we will be revisiting your answers to these statements, or how you evaluated these statements, as we go along in the process of discovering more about the growth mindset by Carol Dweck. So by the way, Carol Dweck, or Professor Carol Dweck, would define this as the belief and theory that ability can be developed through effort, as we mentioned earlier, and by embracing challenges. So remember, when you were at the edge of that platform, and then, fear kicks in, but nonetheless you jumped, right? And you embrace the challenge. We didn't say that there won't be any fears. We didn't say that there won't be any challenges and obstacles. But the important thing there is, did we try? And did we jump from the edge? There you go. So, and I guess you did, and that's why you discovered new things that you did not discover, or you would not be discovering if you did not make that jump. So with that, let me just introduce to us and to our audience the elements of a growth mindset. So the elements of a growth mindset, if I would marry this to the first slide that we have, I would underscore the element of effort. So in our first statement, it's all about effort. If you work really hard, you can actually make yourself an expert. You said, that if you put in the effort, that you can be a good technical person, right? Whereas before, we are just, some sort of a facilitator without any knowledge of what buttons to press, right? But because of the effort that we put in, we learn new things, and voila. And probably, you're probably even more an expert in technical things than I am now. So with that as well, with effort comes malleability. And then you believe that abilities are not set and can be developed, meaning your abilities are not cast in stone. It's more of cast in a rubber or a plastic or a clay, where you can still mold and improve. And it's not yet the finished product, because you can still move things and form it in a different shape. And also it talks about continuous improvement, which is, the main statement for the third concept. You would like to take on new assignments so you can be stretched and you can learn new things. It's all about continuous improvement, continuous transformation, continuous self reinvention. And I guess at the end of the day, these are the concepts that are really driving the growth mindset of the theory of Carol Dweck. So I think it's best for us to really contrast as well to understand growth mindset. It's not just, it's not just all about stating what growth mindset is. It's all about as well stating what it is not. And it's a good contrast when we say between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And it always comes with that. They always come in this dichotomy, so to speak, right? So when we talk about growth mindset, sometimes we are, we always try to contrast it with the fixed mindset. And as we mentioned earlier, growth mindset is all about embracing challenges. Whereas in the fixed mindset, people with fixed mindset, so going back, I would like to step back because as I mentioned earlier, it's all about the study of Carol Dweck, Dino. And I said that in the Stanford University study she did, she grouped two people based on her observations, based on how they did in the examinations, and based on the behavior that they have exhibited during those studies. So this certain group of people who embrace challenges, who persist despite obstacles, who actually put effort as a path to mastery, and they're not afraid to learn from criticism, and they are inspired by other successes. So unlike the other group of people who actually they avoid challenges. Why do they avoid challenges? And they give up easily due to obstacles. And they believe that, I don't need to exert effort because it will be fruitless. They ignore feedback. They are threatened by other success. And maybe just to provide a bit more context on the fixed mindset, because these people, as mentioned earlier on, they were tagged and labeled as very successful, meaning high intelligence, high IQ, you're supposed to be the valedictorians or the best in math or whatever, and you already have that kind of labeling, so to speak. Now, because they believe that they are already the best, the brightest, they don't really have to prove to others that they are, right? That's why they avoid challenge, because if they fail in those challenges, guess what will happen to them? It would actually mar the concept that they have of themselves, that they are the best, that they are the brightest. They don't want to exert any effort because if they believe that they're born with a gift of that talent, it will come easier to them. And if they don't have it anyway, why should they exert effort to display something that they are not gifted with in the first place, right? And because they believe that it is innate and organic talent or abilities that they have, they ignore feedback. And in fact, they are offended by feedback. They don't seek and they don't even give feedback at all. And that's why when they see people succeeding, they are not actually inspired. They are threatened because they believe that these people are a competitor or a threat to them, right? So these are the two groups of people that Carol Dweck studied. And in the longitudinal study, guess which group actually became more successful in the long run,
Well, I would imagine that the people who are willing to have that growth mindset would succeed, because instead of being brought down by their perceptions, they would be caused to aspire and pursue.
That is very true. And in fact, these actual statements or actual concepts that would complement the growth mindset would actually reinforce the statements that you have shared with us, Dino. Because The first column, as you can see, actually underscores the pivotal driving force of the growth mindset. The growth mindset group would always believe in the power of not yet. Not yet. Because they believe, Dino, that they have not yet arrived. They are not yet finished products. They are in the process of becoming, right? They are in the process of becoming. Unlike in the fixed mindset, when they believe that it is all about now. I am a finished product. I am fully developed. And I am the best. I am the brightest. Okay? That's why I think, later on, these group of people actually stagnated as a group versus the group of with a growth mindset, because they thought that they have already achieved the pinnacle of success, the pinnacle of development. Whereas the people who believe that they have not yet reached their optimal actualization strove more, exerted more effort, and they believe that it is a journey, Dino, rather than a destination, because they have not yet arrived. And I heard actually Michelle Cordero Garcia mentioned this when she talked about the new normal in our earlier season. And she said that it's all about growth mindset. It's not being know-it-all, right? As opposed to validation that people, I'm the best, I'm the brightest, I need the validation because I know it all. It's all about learning all. So we have to have that growth mindset. And because they have this perspective of not yet, that life is a journey, that's all about learning. That's why in the longer term, we find this group of people who exhibited growth mindset to be more successful than those people who were tagged as with a fixed mindset after graduating from the university. So you're very true. You're very right, Dino. Because I guess if we have these kinds of qualities, definitely in the long run, these people would have been more successful because they never stopped learning. They never stopped exerting effort. They never stopped developing. So I guess at the end of the day, it's all about this framework, this mindset that make this group of people very, very successful. And Dino, I think you're right as well, because when you opened our conversation, you said that this is very relevant, if I may quote you, Dino, during these times of pandemic, because if we are to grow and if we are to transform and if we are to adapt, we have to learn to be uncomfortable. Because as Jeannie Rometty mentioned, is one of my most favorite women in business, the former CEO of IBM, she said, and she was quoted, that growth and comfort can never coexist. So if you want to grow, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I guess the people with a fixed mindset, Dino, they're the ones who had to contend with a lot of discomfort as well, right? Because of the uncomfortable state that they're in, because they are challenged, their framework that they're the best and the brightest. And then when the pandemic came in, when we had to adapt, when we had to so Dino, probably you're one of those fixed mindset people, would have been very charismatic on a face-to-face mode of conversation, with very influential and very charming on a face-to-face platform. But when everything went on virtual, somehow that charm, somehow that X factor was diminished, because all of us would have to perform in a virtual platform. So if you didn't have that growth mindset on how you will have to learn, on how to influence and how to navigate and how to negotiate in a virtual platform, then other people might have been left behind, those with a fixed mindset. And those sort of sulking, that I used to be influential. I used to be very persuasive. But as you know, Dino, not everyone is able to project as effectively in this virtual platform versus in a uh, live live conference, so to speak. So I always find myself, because I, like yourself, I get to be invited in some conventions, in some speaking engagements. And the first time that I actually um, accommodated or participated in a speaking platform virtually, I found myself really grappling, and it's part of the process. And I took that in as a learning opportunity and try to flex as well on how I can become even more effective in the next opportunities of a virtual platform. But I really struggled, truth to tell, that during that time I didn't know how the audience was reacting, because sometimes I would flex, I would be agile in terms of my presentation, in terms of how I would project my voice, even my countenance, based on how I see the audience react. But because I was blind to that, I was sort of trying to project based on how I assess the audience reactions would be, but not without that empirical evidence of how they would actually react. So Dino, did you encounter that similar situation when we transitioned from a face-to-face presentation to now a virtual presentation?
I would have to say that definitely yes. Initially, during 2019, during the ending of 2019 and the early months of 2020, when people were going online, they eagerly participated, in Zoom or MS Teams. And then I noticed that towards the end of 2020 and then the early part of 2021, they started to make Zoom meetings feel like being in a columbarium. You know, nothing but boxes and the names of people. And so you're there talking to, you don't know if it's their cat or their pet dog listening to you, or they're still beside their laptop, or they're feeding their baby or doing their chores. It was unnerving. It was unnerving because you feel like you're doing your best, you're trying to be as engaging as possible, and yet you're met with stony silence. So yeah, I'm with you. It was difficult, but we just went on faith that somehow they're still with us, because the numbers in the participants pane wasn't going down.
Yeah. So it was really funny because we'll just have to, it's funny you mentioned faith, because faith has a lot to do with it. That somehow you're still on track, somehow you're connecting, somehow you're engaging. But without their faces, you can just rely on faith that things are still on track. And why I mentioned growth and comfort, it's because we are talking about transformation, right? So transformation in a good sense would always point to growth, right? Not the other way around. Otherwise, it's not transformation, growth, it's the degradation. But in that sense, as you know, the growth mindset feeds into transformation. And why is growth mindset important in transformation? And why does it actually feed into transformation? First, because the people with growth mindset, they're quick to initiate relevant action. And why do I say that? Because unlike the people who are in a fixed mindset, um, the people who are in a growth mindset, because they believe that they need to exert effort, they are more action oriented. Because they need to exert effort, they are quick to initiate relevant action. Oh, so this action did not work. Perhaps I can do this, or perhaps I can do this. While the people who are on a fixed mindset mode, they will be baffled why their formula is not working. They will be in an analysis paralysis, because this should work, because this has always worked, right? And it cannot fail because I'm the best, I'm the brightest. So they are actually siphoned in that kind of a mindset that is self-defeating. Unlike people who are in a growth mindset, we're quick to action. This did not work. Okay, I'll try this one. This did not work. I will try this one. So they have a bias for action because they need to exert effort to become successful. And a good thing that you also mentioned about resilience, and that's why it is relevant, because people with growth mindset, they have stronger resilience. And why? Because they don't have the burden of proving themselves that they are the best and the brightest. They don't have that. What they have is, in fact, I need to work hard to become, and I need to exert more so that I will be, right? Unlike the fixed mindset, I am already. And I don't want to try this because if I fail, that would be a detraction to who I am now. And that might even be an evidence against to what I believe I am, right? So that's the dilemma of those people who are trapped in the fixed mindset. And I also heard about Sarah Lee talking about innovation and creativity in one of our sessions, right, Dino? And it's good that Sarah Lee actually mentioned that we are actually born creative. That's why when we have children, right, they play, and then she also had that funny example of a lipstick. Don't let your lipstick lie around there, because otherwise it might be an instrument for art or whatever in your household. So and especially for people who have a growth mindset, they are really more open for novelty, for creativity. As you mentioned, Dino, you had to, try out. You had to at least try to jump from the edge and try to, you had a belly flop or whatever. At least you knew what you didn't know before. And then you can probably readjust and adapt. And that's what we find about that group of people with a growth mindset. They're actually able to function better compared to those who thought of themselves as the best and the brightest, because they stuck in that kind of framework, and they actually are paralyzed. They don't want to move, and they don't want to create action, because any of the actions that might be contrary to their self-belief will be defeating, so to speak, right? So in a way, it creates a lot of dissonance in their perception of themselves. And that's why those people who have a growth mindset, they had nothing to lose. They just need to exert effort because they know that they're not yet finished, and they can still transform and improve and become new, so to speak. That's why it's a catalyst for self-invention or reinvention.
If I may, Eric,
Yeah, please.
interrupt briefly, no? I saw in your numerous credentials that you are also an expert in the MBTI, and as well as many of the things that revolve around psychology. So I was just wondering, is there like a limit somehow to a person's ability to have that growth mindset based on their personality, or does it really matter what their personality is like?
It's a very good question, Dino, and a very tricky one, right? Coming from a psychology background, so I actually graduated with a degree in psychology from our alma mater, Dino, and as you know, it depends as well, because La Salle or Ateneo and our alma mater, UP Diliman, might have a different kind of curriculum when it comes to psychology. Some of them might probably be, and it depends on the theory or a theory in psychology that you subscribe to. So some of them might be Jungian, so from Carl Jung. And from Carl Jung's theory, and MBTI, as you referred to, and it's good that you referred to that, because MBTI came to life because of the theory of Carl Jung. So with that, Dino, Carl Jung actually believes in innate and organic and non-malleable skills and personality, right? So MBTI actually sorts of measures your innate or organic preferences, and those preferences do not change through time. It doesn't mean that you cannot flex, right? It doesn't mean that you cannot flex, that you cannot be malleable because of the environment, because of the training, but some people would be more adept or will find it easier to do things because they are born with it. So the nature and nurture in Jungian theory, nature would take precedence over nature. Other theories might also believe that nature would actually topple nurture will actually topple nature, because, for example, they have had studies that even twins who are identical twins who are very same in DNA, so organically you cannot say you cannot say that they are different, because from a DNA perspective in each and every chromosome they're the same. However, because of the nurture part, when they are actually separated and brought up differently with different backgrounds, religion, education, they actually score differently in psychological tests and even in the aptitude tests. So I guess it's, from my perspective, I think I would not subscribe to just one theory. I would subscribe to somewhat a more pragmatic and eclectic approach in this. So I think, both nature and nurture, actually Jungian and even other Freudian and even Gestalt, we just have to marry all of the good things, because not one theory is complete in its own. And that's why you have to integrate it, or whatever makes sense to you from a pragmatic standpoint. That's why, from my preference, from my perspective, it's really all about nature and nurture. And I believe in the indomitable spirit of the human being. And I believe that, our imagination is the limit to what we can achieve. 2,000 years ago, we would not have believed that we will be flying, and now we are flying. 2,000 years ago, we would not have believed that we will be talking to people on the other side of the planet real time, and we're doing that already. And 2,000 years ago, we thought that some forms of cancers couldn't be cured, but some of them are actually being cured right now. So I think it's just a matter of time, and for us to transform and really understand and learn further. But yes, there might be some limits. That's why I ask you again, in one of the statements there. But at the end of the day, do you still believe that they will be able to develop? And then you said yes, but it might take a bit more time and a bit more effort. But at the end of the day, they can still be developed. And that's a great question, and that's a great response from you.
I'd like to follow it up with maybe something that will marry everything together, because in his book, in his wonderful book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl postulated this view that a person with a dream or a vision, regardless of who he is, whatever his background is more likely to succeed. In his illustration of this German prisoner camp, where the commandant was interviewing people, asking them, what do you plan to do after the war? And so if a person said, I plan to marry my fiancée and start a bakery, then the commandant would whisper to his sergeant, put him in the maximum security. And then when he asked another prisoner, so what do you plan to do after the war? I have no idea. Who knows? And so the commandant would whisper, minimum security for that guy. So in other words, maybe it's not so much the personality, but a person's vision, a person's dream. Because even people like Dr. Dennis Waitley firmly believes in the body going in the direction of the currently dominant thought. So if you believe it, then surely you will be able to achieve it, with the effort. So maybe those two will marry somehow all of those other theories about human behavior. How do you feel about that?
You know what? I believe, right, Dino, I believe that man's finite wisdom is still in the process of becoming. And we don't know what we don't know now. And I guess it's just, the growth mindset of being open to new things to explore and the curiosity to try to understand. I think that's what will be infinite is the openness, the curiosity, the agility to really learn and to try to find out. So I think, I don't have the monopoly of truth here, Dino, but I guess what we could actually advise our audience as well is never lose that perspective of wanting to learn, trying to find out, and being open to new ideas, innovation, and new theories. Because we don't know at the end of the day what is really true. Because God, in His infinite wisdom, only provided us a droplet of His oceanic wisdom, and it's part of that. So man's search for meaning. I think responding from a growth mindset. I think it's a journey. That right now we're probably uncovering only 5% of the realities and truth of this world. And I guess that's openness would lead us to greater coverage and greater territories as well. So I guess if we marry ourselves to certain theories, I think that is a bit dangerous. But we try to open and try to see what works and makes sense. I think that will bring us to new territories and broaden our horizon together.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'll be the first to admit that while I may have made the transition to becoming a more technical person, because my degree is actually in fine arts from UP Diliman.
Wow.
So I spent five years of my professional life initially in the animation industry.
Wow.
Teaching
I didn't
people
know
how
that.
Yeah. I was with Burbank Animation Incorporated, so we were drawing Defenders of the Earth, Marvel characters. And so somewhere there in one of the episodes, I drew my name as Dino when the Hulk smashed the building, and you go frame by frame, you'll see my name in individual letters.
There you go.
But the thing is, I made the transition over to training, which is a total career shift. And then I had to adopt a different mindset, face new challenges. But I'll be the first to admit that when in Toastmasters, they came up with the new norms, the pathways, as they call it. I don't know if you're aware of the Toastmasters movement and or if you're a member, but because I had already become a DTM, a distinguished Toastmaster, I will admit, I'll be the first to say that I looked at the pathways manuals and I thought, maybe I don't need this anymore because I've gone through the legacy series. But because of what you're sharing, it made me realize and admit to myself that maybe I shouldn't have dismissed those manuals outright and at least try them, try to grow and learn from them. Because Einstein once said, he who stops learning stops growing, and he who stops growing is dead.
Yeah,
So
that's true. You stop living. And I know Toastmasters for sure, right? And in fact, I was filled with fear in really joining, because one, I heard that you have counters of fillers, and I have lots of fillers in my communication, in my conversation. So there are also a counter in terms of grammatical errors. Also, oh no, people are counting my grammar, my grammatical errors. And then there's also the presentation, the format, and even your presence. Actually, all of those are good things. But if we are filled with fear, then that's the start of that paralysis for growth. So I guess it's like you have to face your fears, assess them, and see how you can best benefit from and rechannel the fear into a new energy of transformation. So I guess you did the right thing there, and talking about, so this another transformation is the aspect of wellness, which I think is worth discussing, Dino, because people who have a growth mindset are able to cope better in an environment such as the pandemic. And why? Because they have self-compassion. And why do I say so? Because they know that they are not yet finished product. They are still in the process of becoming. They know that they have not yet reached the pinnacle of their development. So they are more self-forgiving. They know that they can do better. They know that, they can try harder and become eventually more successful. Unlike those who have fixed mindset that, I did my part. If it failed, right? And then they will just stagnate. And then because of the growth mindset as well, when we express our vulnerability, because the people with the growth mindset are in a way seen as more authentic because they don't want to put a front of a facade. They know that they are still, a process in becoming. They know that they can make mistakes. Unlike people who would probably, I did that and that's the right thing for me and that's it. And they don't even want to acknowledge that they have made a mistake only because it will be contrary to their self-image or what they thought they are. Right? So unlike people who have that growth mindset, they are able to show their vulnerability. They can cry, they can admit to their errors and mistakes and vow to do better, which is great. And because of that, people see them as more authentic. And it's very important for us leaders, for example, to really be authentic, especially in these days and day and age, where we have to be more compassionate, we have to be more honest, more true to ourselves, and essentially, these are seen as inspiration by other people to become even more authentic and also become more vulnerable. Because like Dino, if you're a leader who are able to open up, then people, your subordinates also open up to you. And that's very important, especially in these times of the pandemic, when you don't have a lot of face time. And in the few moments of your one-on-ones, you really want to have quality time with your subordinates. And if you have that front, if you have that facade, the conversations become more monotonous, robotic, insincere, and you just focus on, for example, data, but wherein you have to talk about how are you feeling, is there anything I could do for you? In fact, I'm struggling right now. I hope you are, faring better than I am, and if you are also feeling the same way, I am here and we can talk about it. I guess those are, better conversations, especially this day and age. And growth mindset, of course, they have humility because they believe that they can still improve and they can still grow. And remember, during these times, gratitude, pays a lot. It gives us a lot of way to be resilient, be well, because gratitude is the key to happiness and joy, because you have to count on the things that you have, unlike people who are in the growth mindset that they have self-entitlement. And once they feel that they are not getting what they are supposed to get, they sulk and they become more and they indulge in self-pity. So that's not the adaptive and the very responsive way of responding to the new norm. So that's why people in the growth mindset are able to adapt more in the new setup. Dino, you're about to say something.
What I seem to be hearing, Eric, from you is that it seems that far more than IQ, EQ plays a big role in people who are able to have this growth mindset. Vulnerability, the willingness to accept criticism. A person with a low EQ wouldn't handle that very well. So, yeah, my question would be, how does a person with a fixed mindset, for example, learn to harness his EQ so that he can become more willing to grow, to change his worldview?
There you go. So that's where, again, you asked me to which psychological theory I subscribe to. So there you go. So as I mentioned before, I think I would have to also pull in the nurture piece of it. I don't believe that people who are perfectly able to display the growth mindset 100%, and the people with the fixed mindset are 100% fixed mindset. I always believe that there is malleability and there's always transformation for everyone. And that's why, hold your thought there, Dino, because I do have some bits of tips where we could actually cultivate more the growth mindset from our perspective. So, there are many applications, and I'll go very briefly here. And you mentioned before that I was, attracted and inspired by Carol Dweck's theory, only because I also have a lot of personal reflections and personal experiences on the growth mindset. And this is not to put drama into this conversation, but unlike many of your other guests as well, like Becca Bustamante and some other guests as well, many of us actually came from not so affluent, or
Yeah.
may I say very modest background. So if you would believe me, even before, because I graduated from um, from a public school, o mababang paaralan ng kapitbahayan, in my primary school days. And then I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to a private school, an exclusive school in Navotas, Malabon. And believe you me, I was full of insecurities because I couldn't the word anxiety in high school. So it actually, but instead of filling me with self-pity, I sort of tried to read well, be able to speak better, communicate better, and hopefully it paid off. So it took hours and hours of reading, or even reading aloud newspapers, because that's the only material that I could get from our neighbors. And hopefully it paid off. So there's also a personal struggle there and personal experience. So my father actually was a jeepney driver. So his usual route would be from Bangkusay to Divisoria. So, and that's an area of our less fortunate population in Malina or Tondo, Manila. And you can see, that the area there is not your affluent area as well. So I grew up in that kind of environment. But as you mentioned, Dino, I was fueled by my dream and by my vision. And that's why I tried to persevere and I actually grow. And that's why I would have some examples as well in the corporate scene, where I think that it also played a pivotal role. So I guess from a personal standpoint, there are many examples, international, even local, who are exhibiting and displaying the growth mindset, and it brought them successes and achievement where people might not have expected them to be achieving similar feats. But there they are. Wonderful. So going to the relationship, and most especially perhaps, like again, it has a personal string to me, especially in husbands and wives. And I know, that being married yourself and having children is very important for you to build that kind of relationship. And it's always good for us to wear a growth mindset. You will not necessarily see yourself as someone who is already fixed. You will see yourself as someone, because marriage is built on compromises, as you probably and it's a give and take. It's a give and take relationship. It's a union of two imperfect people. And if you have imperfect people, they have imperfect actions, they have imperfect decisions, and you would have imperfect results. But the key there is persevering, understanding, and trying again, knowing that both of you are in this together, and both of you will try to work hard to make things work. And also for your children, you don't easily give up on your children, right? So you always try to see the best in them, and even if they have made mistakes, you try to guide them and actually position them and help them actually to practice the skills so that they can improve better. And then in the corporate setup, there's a funny study that I did personally when I was in Citibank. So this is also a somewhat longitudinal study where I tried to understand who among our hires actually performed best. When I say perform best, at least in a 2-year period, in terms of performance rating, they should at least rate as exceeds expectation or outstanding, which is the two highest levels. And also who also stayed with us longer, right? So that's also an indication of perseverance. So I clustered together all of those that we hired in the top universities, quote unquote. So some of our listeners might probably be please don't. So this is just a particular study, and I don't have biases, but I lump together UP, Ateneo, and LaSalle, the usual suspects, into one group. Those who graduated in that, and then also the other schools who are not part of those, and usually those are from even far-flung provinces. Pamantasan na lungsod ng whatever city that is in those provinces. So we cluster them together. So lo and behold, the results of my study, and funny, I named them, in two groups. So the first one who graduated from UP Ateneo LaSalle, I call them the Ilustrados. And the other group, I call them the Indios Bravos. Right, so Indios, so meaning because they are not graduates from those acclaimed schools, so to speak. But who stayed with us longer, and who performed better? So because in alignment with our theme of growth mindset, I was actually during that time surprised that our best performers, and long-staying best performers at that, are those from the Indios Bravos, those who we hired from the far-flung universities in the Philippines. So that's the time where my own biases were debunked, right? It's not always, you don't always get the best and the brightest and long-staying from the top 3 so-called universities of the Philippines, but we can find it elsewhere as long as you have the right qualities that you look for. And right now, even Google is recognizing that for them, it's the grit, it's the curiosity, it's the agility to learn that is most important, rather than whether you graduate from an Ivy League or not. So that is a personal experience that I did in an actual empirical study, So very interesting.
I agree, because even Elon Musk has been famously saying that he doesn't really care about degrees. Anybody can work for him in Tesla or SpaceX as long as they're willing to explore new things, to try new things, to challenge themselves. And so that was, I'm sure, very reassuring to a lot of people who had dreams.
Yes. That very true, And to add to that, you talked about Elon Musk, a great personality, and these are international people who have exhibited a growth mindset, and they have actually achieved more than they have aspired for in their dreams. So I would like to invite you, Dino. I know some of these might be familiar faces to you, and probably just pick one first, and let's see how they're able to achieve and be a model for growth mindset.
I do recognize the Chicago Bulls.
There you go. So as you know, and the name is Dino.
Let me see. That would be Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, right. And remember, there are many quotes about Michael Jordan. In fact, he said that, I am sorry. I am sorry for making basketball look easy, and for also undermining and not showing you how much time and effort I needed to exert to get to where I am. And as you know, many other quotes are saying that, he needed to practice 8 hours a day. You have to shoot the ball at least 10,000 times for you to perfect it. So that goes to show a lot of effort, a lot of practice, and not necessarily focusing on gifts. Because as he said, he's not exactly the tallest. He's not exactly the most agile. He's not exactly the best built for basketball. But he is, legendary in many ways. So it took a long time for his records to be broken by younger and more agile. In fact, and even those people who broke his records actually took inspiration from him. So in many ways, he actually brought basketball to a new level, not because of innate or organic talent, but because of the focus, the effort, and the growth mindset that he has. he even said that, and as mentioned, he said sorry for making it look easy, but you don't know and you don't see the effort that went into it. And that is underscoring the growth mindset. Next famous personality, if you can recognize them, or just choose whatever picture that would interest you, Dino.
I'm just guessing here, but that would that be Thomas Edison in the middle?
There you go. Perfect. Wonderful. Thomas Alva Edison, the famous inventor of the light bulb. And as you know, Dino, how many thousands of light bulbs did he had to go through before coming up with an actual working one?
Yeah, I heard that he went through like 5,000 filaments until he figured out that tungsten was the
Yeah.
thing that worked.
It's thousands and thousands, right? And every time, there's a quote, and let hold your thought there, because I'll be showing you a quote that would actually underscore his growth mindset. And he's the kind of inventor who actually is, try until you succeed. And that's not just evident in the tungsten light bulb. It's evident in most of his inventions, actually. So he is actually, from an inventor's perspective, the innovation's perspective, they would say that it's, there's another quote, right? It's 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. So it's really all about hard work, because it's not just done overnight. It's not just done through some intervention of our divine inspiration. It's actually through perspiration. So there's hopefully another quote that would complement that thought. And the last personality there is,
I'm just guessing because it's a painting, but that could be Sir Isaac Newton.
he looked very similar, but that's actually, so we're veering away from the scientific realm and going towards more of the music and arts world. And this is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Right? Yeah.
He was the deaf, right?
Oh, so you're referring to Beethoven.
Beethoven.
This,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but this one is, he was known to be a child prodigy. But, so they said that he is the gifted person because he is already playing minuets at the age of 11, 13, and so on and so forth. But what they didn't know is that his parents are very strict, and he was asked to write compositions, thousands of compositions before he's able to break through with a good one. So it's not just about, being a child prodigy or having that organic talent. He actually had to work very hard and practice and try to do different variations of minuets before he's able to come up with a palatable one for the royal for the royal people of Austria. So there you go. So it's, sometimes don't be misled by people making things look or appear easy, because they're not. They're not showing us the hard work, the long hours of focusing on what needs to be done. It just happened that they are also making it look easy, and as if they are also actually from a talent perspective, but they marry it with very strong hard work. And this is the quote I'm mentioning to you about Thomas Alva Edison. He said, so when a reporter asked him about his failed attempts in creating the light bulb, this is what he said: how did you feel to fail 1,000 times? And Edison replied, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. Great success is built on failure, frustration, and even catastrophe. So that is the perspective of a person who is actually wearing that growth mindset hat. So kudos to him, because otherwise, if he stopped at 999, we wouldn't have our light bulb nowadays, right? So
I remember, I think he also said something like, I found 999 ways that the light bulb wouldn't work.
There you go. So that's another perspective. So there you go. So you try until you succeed, and that's the growth mindset. So from an international realm, let's go to the local scenario. I know some of these are, some of these might be friends of yours even, right, Dino? So Take a pick.
Rebecca. I think that's Rebecca
That's
Bustamante.
Rebecca Bustamante. Yes, one of our guests here in your platform, in the Leader's Edge. And you know, Rebecca came from very modest or humble beginnings, right? From a normal domestic helper to a CEO of her own company, Invent. So a lot of, you know, and has kept on inspiring people and Filipinos around the world and raising the flag of the Filipinos. So you know, she was actually flustered and even angered when one dictionary actually defined Filipina as domestic helper. Who would not be irritated by that statement, by that whatever dictionary that is not even worth mentioning, right? You know, so you're talking about vision or purpose. Rebecca had that. She was fired up by that vision and purpose to raise the flag of the Filipina at a global platform. And here she is now, inspiring more Filipinas to follow her suit. Next personality, Dino.
I would say, of course, that's the kamao ng bayan, Manny Pacquiao.
There you go. So, you know, Dino, that's of course Manny Pacquiao. And, you know, I'm not being biased and I'm not being, you know, I don't have any preferences. It's just that when I ask as well my wife, I asked without even speaking with her. I said, you know, Mahal, I have to feature Filipinos who displayed growth mindset just for our audience to relate to and be inspired. And you know, without giving her some of the names, actually we had two in mind together. So we had Becca because we had personal interactions with Becca herself as well, and then Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao, she said, you know, and this is quoting my wife, it's not just all about rising from poverty to affluence. It's all about reinventing yourself because Manny Pacquiao is a division holder not only of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 divisions. And no one can top that. So we can even say that, you know, Mayweather might have beaten him, right? But that's just one aspect of it. He is the world champion for 8 divisions, and no other boxer can do that, right? And also, he's not just a boxer. He is a singer, he's an actor, a basketball player, an entrepreneur. So talk about growth mindset. He's a politician, for goodness sake, right? So whether he's doing that right or wrong, you know, I'm leaving it up to the discerning people. But one thing's for sure, he's not afraid to try, he's not afraid to reinvent himself, and he does not shy away from challenges and transformations and learning. So you can even say that from his humble beginnings on how he boxes, you can see that he has professionalized and fine-tuned his skills as well to become a real professional boxer at this point in his age. So there you go. So though you have Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, definitely he is one person who definitely believes that it's better to give than to receive.
That's another aspect of money. There you go. So the last one, if I may, I don't know if you know this person, Dino.
I'm drawing a blank, but he does remind me of Josh Ramos. I'm not sure if
perhaps because of the youth, right? But you are seeing there at our leftmost side is Jonathan Yabut. Jonathan Yabut is our first is the first and only Filipino to win a successful reality program, right? So it's an adaptation of Donald Trump's show. Remember, you are fired, you are hired, right? The Apprentice, right? So Asia's, so he actually won Asia's Apprentice, the first ever and the first Filipino. So, and he actually wrote a book, and his book is entitled From Grit to Great.
Wow.
From grit to great. So there you go. So it underscores again the growth mindset. He said that he was not the most intelligent participant. He was not the most charismatic. He was not the most, pleasing personality in that competition. But oh boy, he said, I am the grittiest. among them. I'm the most persevering. I'm the most fired up by learning. So that no one could take away from Jonathan Yabut. And he said that his key to success in winning the first ever Asia's Apprentice was his grit, his perseverance, his focus, his effort. No one worked harder more than he did in that competition. And that's why he won that competition for the Filipino.
So that would have been like the local version of the Shark Tank, aside
Yes,
from.
yes. Yeah, I think that was taken as well from that concept of the apprentice. But yeah, you're right. That's a more contemporary version of that concept of the reality show. So
One of our coming guests is judge in that show in
oh,
next
there you go.
Joe
Wonderful.
Magsaysay will be here.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and he's Jonathan Yabut is also a marketing professional before he became the winner of the Asia's Apprentice. So I was talking about your question, and maybe this slide would address that question of yours. You said, how can people with fixed mindset move towards the spectrum of a growth mindset? And I'm saying that, this is a spectrum. It's not really a division, although Carol Dweck would actually, frame it that way, that there's a group of people with fixed mindset, there's a group of people with growth mindset. I would rather see it as a continuum. And some people might lie to this extreme and some to this extreme, but it does not preclude some people would actually be in between. So in this respect, how can we be more open to the growth mindset if we believe that we have a tendency to respond with a fixed mindset framework? So to your point, and quoting man's search for meaning, right? So it's all about understanding your purpose. Sa Tagalog, di ba, para saan o para kanino ka ba gumigising, Dino? So that's why you also have, and if you are also spiritual about it, who is your master and what is your mission? So you really have to understand that, because in our world of confusion, volatility, you have to anchor yourself to something and someone who is far greater than you, who could give you your North Star. Right? So that is very important. So if you find yourself to be in a fixed framework wound of mind, have that pause and answer these questions. Who is your master? What is your mission? Understand, and what is your purpose? So if you start to answer those questions, I think you will be able to reorient yourself and put yourself on a track and set a direction for yourself. Aside from that, is setting aside time to reflect and meditate. It's very important for us to pause. I think, one thing that this pandemic has brought us is it gave a bit of time as well. Whether or not we use it wisely or not, it gave us a bit of time. And hopefully that bit of time was set aside to reflect and meditate and introspect. Reassess yourself, reassess your priorities. So, some of us actually became closer to our parents or became closer to our family members. Some of us engaged to more noble task of helping other people and going beyond themselves, helping the community by as you mentioned, some of your sister in your co-fraternity sorority affiliation, right? Of starting something or a conflagration of this passion to help your community by building and you probably would want to talk more about that, but it actually gave us some time to reassess our purpose and how we'll be able to help more ourselves, more our family, but the whole community.
That would be Patrang Non.
There you go.
Our sorority sis who started a community pantry, and that initially she was given so much grief over that, but now it's spread like wildfire. Every community pretty much has a community pantry. And I'd like to validate what you've said, that the pandemic can bring out the worst in some people or bring out the best in some people. Um, I'm glad that finally, after 6 long years, I'm no longer a village officer, because for 6 years I was vice president, and I was saying, when is this ever going to end? We're not even earning from this. This is voluntary work. But it did create this sense of fulfillment, and I got to know my neighbors well, because every time the barangay would release the sacks of rice for distribution, I would be out there together with my next door neighbor, the president, distributing them. Whenever there's like canned food, canned goods, or money, we would help the villagers stay in their homes so they don't have to be exposed. We would be the ones going out to retrieve everything for them. And that helped me to get past the depression and the anxiety over the pandemic, because it felt like I was doing something bigger than myself, for the benefit of other people. And so I
Very
agree with you. Yeah.
we find more meaning to our purpose and to our existence. That's why we're not just existing. We can dare say that we are living, because it's not just for ourselves, but for a greater
Yeah.
purpose beyond ourselves. So, and that's why, yeah, the people with growth mindset, because automatically, they have the tendency to actually reflect more and to pause more. Whereas the fixed mindset, we would advise them to set aside more purposefully time to reflect and meditate, because it might not necessarily be very organic or natural to them to do so. So if they do so more frequently, then they open themselves up to that growth mindset or framework. Last but not the least, which I personally believe in, based on experience, is sometimes we get to be trapped in that corporate race, and the more effort we exert, the better, which is kind of counterintuitive to the effort that that growth mindset people would exert. But lo and behold, people who have a growth mindset, as mentioned earlier, would also have the right perspective of when to pause, when to rest, so that they could be more resilient, bounce back, and achieve even more. So it's not about time management, it's all about really energy management nowadays. Where do you put your energy, and do you actually invest them in the right aspects of your life, so that you're able to reap and harvest more? So Ariane Huffington, I don't know if you know her, but she's one of the advocates of sleeping and recharging, because going back to creativity, innovation, sometimes sometimes when you rest, and sometimes when you just walk, or when you just shower, that's where creativity, innovation kicks in. And new ideas, new innovations sometimes actually come to you when you suddenly wake up in the morning with that fresh perspective and idea, right? And when you take it, when you chill and when you become more relaxed, that's when you don't have all of the pressures of the world, that's when new things, you give birth to new ideas and new innovation and creativity. So rest, sleep, and recharging is the way that the growth mindset people are able to sustainably continually achieve more and more as they go through their journey. So those are the advice or tips that I would share, Dino, for your people who find themselves to be more fixed. So if they practice this more and more, I think opened them up to more opportunities to adapt to a growth mindset framework.
I love that, because we keep hearing people say it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. And to a certain extent, that might be right, because of course it's talking about innovation and trying new things, because they keep saying again that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and then expecting different results. And yet the truth is, there is no substitute for good old-fashioned sweat, hard work, hard effort. And we fail because failure is the fertilizer for success. The growth isn't possible if you never experience failure.
Right.
Sometimes it's good to be in a place where you're humbled, you're broken, because when you are, that's when you become moldable. that's when you become open to change, and then growth becomes possible. So, having heard so many of these conflicting things, and there's one more. Some people have been famously saying, sleep? I don't need sleep. Sleep is a waste of time. And I go, are you crazy? So, there's so many of these things going around, and thankfully you're here to contradict that, because my goodness, we need a rest. We
We
need
do.
to recharge.
We do. And Dino, we don't want to be greater than God, because even God rested on the
Yes, you
seventh
did.
day.
Yes, you
And
did.
who are we to say or to claim that we don't need rest or sleep is a waste of time? We have to remember that this is a marathon. This never been a sprint, because in the longer run, many scientists and even neurobiologists would actually tell you that if you don't sleep, you're killing millions and millions of neurons. And people who don't sleep are actually more prone to dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So if we're saying that this is a marathon, you want to be productive even if you're in your 70s, because we are in the new normal. We don't retire at age 65.
Yeah.
That's even questionable right now. So if you want to be very productive, very meaningful members, important members of society, even if you're 80s, then that can only be done by adapting sustainable behavior. And rest, sleep, and recharging are pivotal and integral part of us really achieving more in the long run. And this suits more the growth mindset, because for the growth mindset people, it is not now. It is an ongoing process, because we are not yet finished. We can
That's
still
true.
improve. We can
Yeah.
still develop.
Dr. Dennis Waitley did say that it's not the pursuit of happiness that's important, but the happiness in the pursuit that really matters. Um, it's probably the reason why Okinawans live so long,
So long. That's right.
100 plus. And we're, as Shirley mentioned in a previous episode, that they have found their ikigai because they've learned to perfect their craft. They've learned to enjoy what they do, and rest, eat right.
And rest and rest
Yeah.
and appreciate. Yeah, you know what? Because they complement each other, right? So you work hard and you play harder, or even rest harder if that's your play, right? Because you have to understand and recalibrate whether you're on the right track. Because as you mentioned, it's not just all about exerting effort. You have to exert effort on the right things. Because if you're not exerting effort on the right things, you will be doing the wrong thing, right? So the one thing that is working for the growth mindset folks is they know, as mentioned, they know when to pause, when they know when to reassess, and they know when to readjust or to recalibrate and to course correct as needed. And that's why they are, in the longitudinal course, they are more successful. They're more able to reinvent themselves better. They're even able to transform and adapt accordingly, because they have the rest, they have the pause where they could reassess and then reinvent or adapt as needed.
Eric, I do love how you've been sharing so much about the right mindset and about how we can use that to become our true north and find direction and the potential for what we can achieve eventually with effort. Um, would you like to share with our audience, say, for example, how they may be able to reach you, or if you have upcoming events that they may want to either join, enroll, or take up? Is there something you'd like to announce to the audience?
Oh no, so thank you so much, Dino, for this opportunity. I've mentioned that this is an honor and a privilege, and I take it upon myself as I'm also responsible in uplifting the level of the HR profession in the Philippines. I, together with my colleagues in the industry, and some of them have been guests in this wonderful platform, Dino, and I'm very thankful for this platform so that you're able to amplify our voice. And much like my vision and vocation, so to speak, much like Michelle and some other members of this platform, and even Dina, for example. We want to ensure that we put the Filipino practice at par, if not even better, at the world standard. So I enjoin everyone to just be connected. You can find me on LinkedIn, even Facebook, and ask questions. We can do mentoring. I definitely can learn a lot from all of you. And hopefully I could return the favor by sharing my thoughts and insights as well, and how we can move forward to make the Philippines, the greatest, one of the centers for leadership from an HR practice standpoint. So together with the rest of my colleagues in the industry, I wish you all greater success, prosperity, and let's all raise the flag of the Filipino HR practice. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Dino.
Oh, you're very welcome, Eric. And maybe we can stop the screen share for now. And let me just say that this is certainly one of the longest episodes we have had on record, because
I apologize for that. I'm just so consumed by this sharing, Dino. So, and thank you so much for being very engaged in our conversation. I said that this will be a conversation rather than a presentation, and I hope that the audience also find value despite the length of the recording.
It's okay, because I've noticed that people do appreciate deep dives into topics that would have otherwise just been glossed over. There is so much value in what we talked about today. So it's not so much the length, but it's the value that we're both delivering to our listeners, to our audience. And so on behalf of the Speakers Bureau, on behalf of the Leaders Edge and my co-host, we would like to say thank you, because I know what it took for you to get here, to be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric has really done such a service for us, because he has managed to find the time, the good health to be with us here today. So thank you once more.
The pleasure is all mine, and I just look forward to continuing the conversation with you and with our colleagues in the industry. So thank you so much for such a wonderful opportunity.
Someday, I do hope that we can invite you again, maybe on another topic, or on a related issue, so that we could learn some more from you. And coming up for our next episode is a treat for everybody, because we will be speaking with Joe Magsaysay. You remember him from Potato Corner. He will be in episode 5 of season 7, talking about how disadvantages strengthened me. Imagine that. So it's a perfect dovetail from what Eric has discussed with us here today, and then moving on to somebody who started with humble beginnings as well, and how he did not let obstacles stop him to create one of the biggest franchises in our nation's history. So I do hope that you will all be here for that. And, it never hurts to subscribe and click the notification button, so that you will have access to all of this great content. So as ever, ladies and gentlemen, please remember that learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day.